Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unboxing Umbraco 10.1. That's right, the first minor of Umbraco 10 is out with a bunch of great new features, some awesome improvements, and a bunch of nice fixes as well. During the unboxing video, we will, as usually, take a look at some of the highlights, do a couple of demos, look at who helped us build this release, the contributors from the community, and hopefully get you on a good start with Umbraco 10.1. To help me out with presenting a couple of demos, I've brought along two of the, I could say, unboxing veterans almost. Ronald and Warren from the HQ have joined me. Would you like to introduce yourselves, gentlemen?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Ronald Paase, developer in the CMS and commercial products teams at Umbraco, and also steward of the community package team.
Hey, I'm Warren, and I work with Emma and Seb over on the developer relations team. All things dev experience and relations and community stuff.
Very nice, very nice. Myself, I'm Rune. I'm product communications producer at Umbraco. So I write blog posts on releases, make videos on releases, and that sort of stuff. But we've got a lot to dive into with this release. So let's just go ahead and take a look at the first feature. Ronald, yep. I know you've got a pretty neat demo for us.
I do. One of the biggest features in this minor release is the addition of runtime modes. And I'll first give a brief description because I already saw some feedback on the RCs about having some confusion about what it actually does and how it works together with health checks, for example. Well, the runtime mode enables Umbraco installations to be either configured for an optimal development experience or to have a optimal production environment. And most of the development features currently aren't disabled on production environment, and this new setting allows you to opt in to two new modes, the development and production modes. And I'll give a demo on how to correctly configure this on your solution and show some of the new things that we added to make this all work.
Very exciting.
Yes, I'll start by showing that there's currently already documentation in place that explains this even in more detail, and also gives a quick guide on how to set up your Umbraco site using development mode or production mode. And it's important to state that the default mode is back office development, and that's the same behavior as Umbraco has always had in the previous versions. And that allows for rapid development, including doing everything from the back office. And to make this...
So that means that when you install Umbraco, it will work just as you know it. We haven't changed any defaults at all.
No. And to make that work, to be able to edit document types in the back office and the templates, the views, we use the in-memory auto models builder mode and enable runtime compilation of your Razor views. And that all adds some overhead and aren't things you are required to have enabled if you're running your site in production, and probably isn't advised to have to leave enabled in the default mode. And because there wasn't any guidance previously on how to correctly configure your Umbraco solution for development and then how to take it on take that development environment and move it to production. This now helps you also to have the correct settings in place and have some validation of those settings as well. And yeah, I can quickly show how you can get started and enable production or development mode first, and then later on production. Yep. So I have a clean Umbraco 10.1 installation over here that also uses the starter kit. So we have some views and document types already. And you can already see the comments in this clean project file contains some updated text and guides you into using or removing the correct things. So I'll just show if I go to the site, you have the starter kit as usual, and to go into the back office, I can quickly show that you can, for example, add a property, and we can then also edit the home. I'll quickly add another title, save, and then if I then have some content, refresh, you can see it's all automatically updated. You can do everything from the back office. But as I said, that includes some features that you probably don't want enabled on production. And going from the current back office development mode to production mode, that first requires you to enable product or the development runtime mode. So if I uncomment these settings in your app settings.json, we now have runtime mode development enabled. And because you can't use in-memory auto, we now use the source code auto. And you can also disable models builder completely, and for example, use a different models mapping solution. But that's out of scope for this demo. And because the models are generated from the back office, let me now restart the application. So this new setting is picked up. And then go into settings and models builder. You see it's now source code auto. You can generate the models. And then you should have a folder in Umbraco models that contains all the generated models. So that's basically the things you need to do to enable development mode. And
I'm wondering what else does development mode do? Anything else than disable the? I mean, I guess you manually disable the or enable the models to be built. So it doesn't change the models mode for you, because as I said, you can use source code auto, you can use the source code manual, or even disable it completely. And the only thing that's validated as a setting is to make sure that the models builder mode isn't set to in-memory auto, because when you're using development runtime mode, the services in Umbraco are not set up anymore to support the in-memory models builder mode. So that's the reason why there's a validation happening when you use development
so
runtime
what
mode.
happens if you do forget to change that? Does it implode? What happens, Ronald?
Yeah,
right.
I'll in-memory auto. So if I leave this to in-memory auto, and then showed the front end. Yeah, you'll get a boot failed exception. And in this case, it clearly states runtime mode validation failed for development. Models builder mode cannot be set to in-memory auto.
Very nice.
A nice, yeah, nice.
Descriptive even.
Descriptive message. This is also visible in the Umbraco log, and I'll first make sure it works again, and then show you that that error message is also visible if you go into the log viewer. Yep, failed for development. So in this case, because we're using a development environment, you get the complete error message on the front end. But if you are in a production environment, the boot failed page, nicely laid out page is shown that doesn't contain all those details, because you probably don't want those details to be visible to the public. Yeah, in that case, you can look into the logs and see why the runtime mode validation failed.
Yeah. So these modes actually help guide you to the correct settings, you could say, right?
Yep. Yeah. And in this case, because if we are converting or publishing this site to a production environment, you actually do want the models to be generated. So that's like a prerequisite for enabling production mode, which I can show right now.
Let's see.
Just to highlight the development, app settings development is just the default one that's shipped with a new empty template. And I've added app settings production that sets the runtime mode to production, and that uses HTTPS, as that's one of the validations that basically enforces you to use a best practice security setting for your site, and disables models builder completely, because the models are already generated during development.
So they should be deployed with everything else you deploy to the production.
Yeah, if you publish this site, then those source files will be compiled into your project, into your site, and will be available for Umbraco to use. And because a published site can't be like recompiled, you need to republish. So there's no need to regenerate the source files, because those won't be picked up anyway. So with these settings enabled, in this case, if you publish your site, by default, a published site will use the ASP.NET production or environment name production. But in this case, I'll manually update the launch settings. And then if I run this, you'll probably see boot failed again. In this case, like I mentioned previously, a nice boot failed message, but no details. I know that one of the things that's missing from the production settings is the Umbraco application URL. That's also one of the things that we advise to explicitly set on a production site.
Yeah, there's also a health check for that one, right?
Yep, there's also a health check to make sure you actually did set that. And the production runtime mode enforces it by default.
Yeah.
And you probably don't want that setting in your file because you might publish your project to a staging environment and then to a live environment, which will have different URLs. So you can use environment variables, or in Azure, use the application settings, or if you're using Umbraco Cloud, that's already automatically set for you. In this case, because I'll be using a local environment, I'll make sure to use the HTTPS localhost URL. And one of the other things is that currently this site is built in debug mode, and for production mode, the recommended build mode is release, because it also enables some optimizations. And make sure that you get the most out of the performance.
Is the production mode validator checking that for us as well? Is it checking the assembly?
Yes, it is. And if it's also not built in release mode, then you also get a boot fill. And you currently will see that there's like no page found. And this is because I've on purpose forgot to disable building views. And I'll go back into the project, because by default, the project file will have razor compile and build and publish set to false. So if you use the development and or production runtime modes, you can disable this. If I now restart, it works, and it's now using production runtime mode. And I can go into the back office and show a nice little UI thing we did as well. Is that if you go into the templates, you can see, because we're currently compiling the views, you can't edit the views anymore from the back office, and there's a nice message on top, and you can actually not update this anymore.
No more extremely hot fixes.
Yeah, so and that's the only downside, but the advantages are that you are actually making sure that if you're using source control, that your fixes are actually also tracked, and that you'll also use the most performant and
because that's another thing about this, is that it's not just providing a better developer experience if you're using Visual Studio or VS Code for that matter, but it's actually also enhancing performance, right?
And I think that's so it's like best practice and making sure that the performance is as good as we can currently get, and we can probably improve even more. And we already mentioned you can we have runtime mode validators, and just to show you, there's a runtime mode validators collection builder where you can either remove existing validators, or in this case add, for example, a custom one. And you just have to implement the runtime mode validator. And in this case, if we're using production and we have the disable election for single server, which I know is a setting on Umbraco Cloud that's disabled by default, because if you don't use load balancing, there will always be just a single server. So this will improve startup performance, because it doesn't need to check the database on startup. So in this case, if I run this again, we'll probably get a boot field exception again. And if I now go back to the settings and make sure we disable this setting, we should be back up again.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that's an easy way to either remove certain things or extend or
I
do
really like
other
this.
custom things.
Yeah. I assume each agency tends to have their own kind of default configurations and things that they want to enforce. So this would be a really nice way to, like, when we go into production mode or deploy a site from development to production, that we can also ensure that our obscure settings or settings for our own custom code is set into a certain configuration or state. So this is really nice.
It's also for package developers very useful feature if you have certain settings for your package that might have different optimal values for different environments. Then
and I mean, there's also clients that have specific policies around how security and stuff like that in their production sites, right? And as an agency, being able to validate these things and saying we actually enforce these rules, it's just, I think that's great, really good.
Can we add any other runtime modes? Obviously, we've got development and production. Is it possible to add staging, like I have another environment, or
QA or something?
QA, is that plausible as of yet? Or
and in this case, I would recommend using a production runtime mode for your staging and QA environment, because you probably want to make it as close as possible to your actual production.
That makes sense.
So it's more to differentiate between development and running your site on a hosted production environment. That's a good question. And we also already highlighted the the HTTP setting that's checked by health check. And one of the first feedback on the RCs we got was how does this impact health checks? And well, currently it doesn't. Health checks are more advice, general advice, and because the runtime mode is something you opt into, that's the thing that enforces certain settings. But there are plans to include a health check that checks if you're on a production environment, that gives you the advice to enable the runtime mode production on that environment, and also possibly include the validation results of the runtime mode validators. So you already have an overview of what settings you need to update before you actually opt into using the production setting. So that's good suggestions and then good feedback we already got, and there's probably a lot more we can do, including improving the .NET Watch and Visual Studio Hot Reload functionalities. So this is just the start of making sure those things might be possible in the near future.
For the people who need them, right?
Yes.
If you want to use, and that's the same with this. If you want to use this, you can opt into to this. Just to highlight, there's currently also something in the works to add a runtime mode template parameter to the .NET New templates that will configure your new clean solution using all the settings I just shown. So that will probably end up in a future minor release.
Right. So if you want to just start using development right out of the gate, you can configure that when you're installing the template, actually.
You can opt into the use runtime mode, or just check a checkbox on the Visual Studio wizard, and then your default will be development runtime mode, and it will also add a app settings production JSON with the settings for your production environment.
Fantastic.
So, but for now, you or required to manually configure your solution using the documentation that's available, and that's also applies for existing sites. So yeah, that's my demo.
Amazing, fantastic work,
Very nice.
Ronald.
Yes, yeah.
Looks really good. I think a lot of people are really excited about this.
Yep.
And it's good to hear that it's also just the beginning. There's more stuff coming. So
yep,
very cool. And keep the feedback coming. Also when people start using this in development or production, we'll be happy to get any feedback on it and ideas for how it can evolve in the future. So really nice. All right, should we move on to the next one, Warren? Maybe not a, I guess you could almost call it developer experience as well. I know some developers are going to be extremely happy with this.
I know they will be.
With this demo as well.
Yes. So I will jump over and log into my lovely Umbraco 10.1 site. So this is a new feature for translation and dictionary. So it's just quickly create a couple of dictionary items, and we'll create home and home DK, home EN, just to show that we've got some stuff. And then we'll create a nested one as well, just very quickly about
getting advanced.
Yes, oh yeah. About DK and about EN, obviously, put in some real translations. So now with Umbraco 10.1, we can, we've got an option here to import, but let's first export what I have. So from the home dictionary item, I can right click and go to export. And then I can say I want to include the descendants as well. So imagine if I've got this nested tree of lots of different dictionary items, I can take all of these descendants and children as we go. So we're going to go yes, and we're going to export it. And I'm going to move you out the way and figure out where it's saved it on disk for me in my downloads folder. So you can see this is an XML file. Let's just change Visual Studio Code to format this as XML. And then you can see we have this lovely XML files, which we could I could either modify this if you needed to. You could give it to some external party who would do some translations for you. Rather than home DK, it could obviously be updated. So let's just updated and about DK updated. Let's save that. So let's delete them and just show that we can import them now. So they're all gone. And using the lovely new menu item, we can import what we've just deleted with my lovely change. So there's the home UDT file, which is this XML. So it's figured out which dictionary items I'm going to include. It's asking me where do I want to import them. So if I had an existing tree, I could then say like import this at this specific location in the tree, but I've got nothing. So I'm going to say import it at the root. So if it's done that quick, you can see the tree updated already. You can see my text has got updated by modifying that XML file. Nice and easy. So that was a quick win. That was the lovely feature, but that's come from a community member. And I'm trying to just look at my notes. Johannes, I think was the name. Recently demoed it with Callum on an Umbraco coffee.
Yeah, a couple of weeks back, yeah.
Yeah, 2-3 weeks ago when we was obviously released 10.1 RC. So kudos and thank you. That's a nice feature, especially if you're working with dictionary items.
Exactly. That can be really useful. If you have a lot of dictionary items that you commonly use for translating buttons and cookie settings and stuff like that on
exactly.
websites.
Again, agency, you build a site over and over again. We always use these dictionary items. We always have a save button, like you say, a cookie consent header and things like this. So you could generate it once in a kind of like a base site and then export it. And then next time you do a build in your next Umbraco build, you can import that and get started kind of straight away quite quickly.
Exactly. Really nice. And it works perfectly on Umbraco Cloud as well. I tested it out there. I mean, obviously you have deploy, so you can the dictionary items are automatically transferred when you do deployment. You can also set them to be transferred from the back office if you want to. But sometimes you might want to move dictionary items between Umbraco Cloud projects or get them from an external project, something like that. So it actually works quite well in tandem with the Umbraco Cloud. And double thanks, I guess, to Johannes, because he also introduced the move dictionary items action that was added
a little while back.
Yeah, 9.3, I think, maybe something like that. They work pretty well together. I think that you are now able to also sort and move your dictionary items around when you have imported them. So fantastic work, super nice.
Yeah, kudos. So Runa, you're going to take me and take a look at the new installer UI if I stop sharing my screen.
Yep, I will try for sure. So we have yet another update to the installer screen. I'm just going to start a new installation here with 10.1. So we should get the installer popping up. Now in Umbraco 9.5, so the last release before Umbraco 10, we introduced telemetry settings into the back office. So we collect a bit of anonymized data about Umbraco installations. There's 3 different modes: minimal, basic, and detailed. And you can choose how much you want to share with us. And we then use this anonymized data to be more informed about how Umbraco is used out in the wild, help us make decisions on features and improvements in the future. So hopefully people will click detailed. We definitely encourage that, but you now have the option to choose this directly in the installer when you're setting the site up. So you don't have to go into the back office, into the settings section and choose this. And you've got the full description for each of the items here, so you know exactly what you're choosing. And then it's all set up when you do your installation. And of course, afterwards, the changes that were made in 9.5 still work, so you can go into the settings section and update these should that be needed at a later date. So really great. I think it's wonderful to have this as part of the installer in Umbraco. It makes a lot of sense to be informed about the telemetry at this point.
Yep.
And it's
totally agree.
It's also good to have the one-click install button available again. I know that previously you had to click next and then select the database, and you now also see what database provider and name is used by default. And can just click install and do everything from one screen. Yeah, that's a nice little addition as well.
Exactly. There we go. That was 10 characters. But yeah, you can see you can just hit the install button now, and Umbraco will actually just do a one-click install. And if you want to change the database, you can see how it's set up now, and then you can go in and select the database you want to use. So really nice. Good little update.
And it's nice to see over the RC iterations, up until probably very, very recently, the installer UI has been changing around a lot. And I like this variation that we've got now. We just didn't provide any kind of context in terms of what some of these settings meant. And now this kind of 2-column layout, we can provide a little bit more context of kind of what this actually means. If it's the first time you've installed Umbraco, setting it to detailed or minimal means absolutely nothing if I've got no context. So it's good to see this.
Yeah, definitely. Very nice. And Warren, I think you have the last point of order, at least for demo purposes.
Yep. So let's go back to this 10.1 site. So I have a single text node or content node in my site. Here it's just an about us, and it's a variant node or content node. So I've got it in English and in Danish. So om us.
Perfect.
Or about us. Yeah, as best as my Danish will ever get, Runa. But yeah. So previously, when we do back office search, either with the keyboard shortcut of Control Space, or we can use the UI and click up the search icon here in the top right. If I was to search for us, I would get the wrong UI, well, the wrong result. So if I changed to Danish and now do a search of us, he says, wah, 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 demo
Single
found.
S.
What have I done?
Single S, Warren. Then you're.
Then I'm doing it
Yeah.
right. Yes. Helps if I can type. So previously,
Danish is hard.
yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. So previously, what was happening was that it would find the result. However, it would show me the English label for that content node. So it would say about us as opposed to us. So yeah, just a nice editor experience thing. This is just making sure that when I'm set my content tree in the back office over here on the left-hand side to Danish or the language that I'm searching in, that I can then search and easily find the content node that I need to find, and then obviously get the correct result reflected back. Yeah, so super subtle. I think that one come from Ken Jacobson. So thank you, Ken.
Very nice.
And that
nice
was
one.
the last of the demos that I have for 10.1.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's just take a quick peek at the rest of the features we have and fixes and so forth for this release. Find it. There we are. So in Umbraco 10.1, I think that's 43 issues, features, fixes included. Ton of great stuff. Updated translations. Image shop has been updated once again to the latest version. And I actually think this fixes something that a lot of people will be quite happy with. Ronald, you had an idea of what that was, right?
Yeah, so there was a issue reported on the repository tracker about images not being properly resized if the image file name contained special characters. And that was actually something that's fixed in this new image sharp release. So updating to the latest version also fixes that and should make it work again and properly resize or crop your images.
Fantastic. Very nice. Another good reason to upgrade to 10.1. You can see a bunch of UI and UX updates, lots of little tweaks there, a lot of SVG support, once again from Bjarne Fürstenborg. That's really nice. And a nice bunch of bug fixes as well. So definitely well worth an upgrade or a good starting point for new Umbraco installations. And thank you for the pop-up. Speaking of contributions, we have no less than 28 community contributions in this release, so more than 50% of the features and fixes are from the community, and we've of course planted 28 trees corresponding to the number of community contributions. So the Umbraco forest is now getting quite large, 14,000 trees. I don't know how much that actually is in real life, but it seems like a high number. So it's good to see.
And also don't forget, if you enable production runtime mode, you probably save some carbon output in just reduce overhead on your installation. So hopefully, a lot of people will start using that and benefit both from the performance improvements and hopefully also save some emissions.
Yeah. That's really nice. We should get an automation that when you put it into production mode, it plants a tree or something like that. That'd be fantastic.
Might be something to include
cool.
in the telemetry data, and yeah, do some
anonymized,
automatic,
of course.
and then do some automatizations on that value.
Yeah. Speaking of contributions, as usual, we'll go through the list of the awesome community contributions that have happened here. We've got quite a few new ones, I think 6 or something like that. I'll try to see if I can not butcher their names too much, but they all deserve a big shout out for contributing to this release. So Mr. Babaki has contributed for the first time with no less than 2 PRs. That's really cool. Got Austin Gilbert, Dennis, Daniel Anderson, and Wilmar de Hoek. Maybe something like that.
Will probably be a Dutch name. So
yeah,
Wilmar de Hoek. Yep.
Yeah, de Hoek. Okay, yeah, great. But high five, you rock. Awesome to see these first-time contributors. And then we've got a list of say known entities. Bjarne Fisk for topping the list with 6 PRs. We've got Eric and Westendorp, Arul Kabakaran, Matt Brailsford, Daniel Knipper, Jevan Leopold, Ken Jacobsen, Johan Runsten, Johannes Land, Rasmus Østergaard, and they all deserve a big high five, you rock. What a nice list to see for this release. So yeah, I think that just about wraps it up for this time around. Umbraco 10.1 is out. You can go create new projects with it on Umbraco Cloud. Existing projects will have a big green upgrade button, so you can get all the newest features into your existing projects. And of course, it's available on NuGet as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking the time to demo this release. And I'll see you probably in about 6 weeks.
Yep. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yep, that was good.
Nicely done.
Yeah. Will be a lengthy one this time, but
how long was it? It's about like 40-50 minutes. I think 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's better a little bit of time talking in the beginning.